A lion roars beneath the blazing sun. Its heart burns with fire, with pride, with the will to rule. Across the sky, the water-bearer steps forward, silent yet unyielding, carrying the vessel of vision, of rebellion, of the future. Leo and Aquarius, two opposites, two powers locked in eternal struggle. One is the sovereign of self, radiant, commanding, unafraid to stand in the center. The other is the voice of the collective, disruptive, visionary, refusing to kneel before any throne. This is not merely a story of astrology. It is the battle written into history, into myth, into the soul of every human being. The fire of ego, the wind of vision, the heart that seeks to rule, and the mind that seeks to free. And between them, the destiny of humanity itself. The zodiac is a wheel of 12 signs, each positioned with intention, each reflecting a cosmic polarity. Opposite signs form an axis, two ends of one spectrum, locked in dialogue across eternity. Leo and Aquarius stand across from one another, their energies forever intertwined. To understand one is to glimpse the other, for the opposition is not an accident. It is a mirror, a challenge, and an initiation. Leo is fixed fire, the radiant heart of the zodiac. It is ruled by the sun, the center around which all else revolves. In Leo, we find individuality, creativity, the flame of ego that says, I am here, I matter, I shine. It is the sign of kings, performers, rulers, and those whose lives become visible to the collective. Yet this fire, so necessary to bring warmth and light, risks consuming itself if left unchecked. Too much Leo becomes arrogance, pride, and domination. Across the wheel, Aquarius is fixed air, the visionary mind, detached and future-oriented. Traditionally ruled by Saturn, and in modern astrology by Uranus, it carries both the discipline of time and the shock of revolution. Aquarius looks not at the individual, but at the group, the collective, humanity as a whole. Its whisper says, we are one, and the future belongs to all of us. It is the rebel, the reformer, the one who pours out water to awaken the sleeping. Yet its gift of vision risks becoming cold, detached, or destructive when it forgets the individual human heart. The opposition between Leo and Aquarius is therefore cosmic law. The sun itself, ruler of Leo, symbolizes ego, radiance, and the will to shine. Saturn, the ancient ruler of Aquarius, symbolizes time, structure, and the dissolution of ego into something greater. Their battle is not random. It is a dialogue between self and society, between the glowing center and the vast collective, between pride and vision. Astrologers such as Dane Rudier and Liz Green have written that oppositions in the zodiac are never meant to destroy one another, but to balance. Without Leo, Aquarius risks becoming abstract, a dream without heart. Without Aquarius, Leo risks becoming tyrannical, a ruler who shines only for themselves. Their opposition ensures that neither pole can claim the whole of truth. It is in the tension between them that wisdom is born. This axis has played out in history time and again. Kings and emperors have embodied Leo's archetype of ego and rulership, while prophets, reformers, and revolutionaries carried Aquarius's vision of the future. The French Revolution, the American Revolution, the great upheavals of history all reveal this struggle. The clash of crown and crowd, of ego and vision, of the throne and the uprising. And yet, beyond the clash lies a hidden purpose. The zodiac places Leo and Aquarius opposite because humanity needs both. We need the heart that dares to shine, and the mind that dares to dream. We need the sovereign and the seer, the roar of the lion and the vessel of the water-bearer. Only together can they carry humanity forward. Their opposition is not only in the sky, it lives in each of us. For within every soul burns Leo's fire and flows Aquarius's vision. The battle is eternal, but so too is the possibility of reconciliation. The lion has always been more than an animal. Across civilizations, it has stood as a symbol of majesty, power, and divine right. In Egypt, the lion-headed goddess Sekhmet embodied ferocity and solar fire, protector of Ma'at and destroyer of chaos. In Mesopotamia, lions guarded thrones and gates, carved in stone as eternal emblems of strength. In medieval heraldry, lions roared from banners and coats of arms, proclaiming the courage and sovereignty of rulers. This archetype is woven into human consciousness because the lion represents the radiance of the self, proud, fearless, sovereign. In astrology, that archetype lives in Leo, fixed fire, ruled by the sun itself. To understand Leo, one must understand the role of the sun. In every culture, the sun was seen as the giver of life, the visible heart of the cosmos. Without it, the earth would wither, the seasons would vanish, and life would end. The sun shines not for one, but for all, radiating endlessly, asking nothing in return. Yet it is always at the center, the fixed point around which all else revolves. This duality is Leo's essence, the ego as both gift and danger. When aligned with the sun's higher nature, Leo becomes a source of warmth, generosity, and creativity. When distorted, it becomes self-absorbed, domineering, or blind to others. The word ego comes from the Latin for I, and in modern psychology, as described by Carl Jung, the ego is not inherently negative. It is the center of consciousness, the point through which the individual interacts with the world. Without ego, there is no identity, no individuality, no capacity to create. In this sense, Leo is sacred. It gives each person the right to say, I exist, I matter, I am a spark of the divine flame. But ego, like fire, must be tended. Left unchecked, it consumes. Guided with wisdom, it illuminates. Leo's archetype is often described as regal. It is the king or queen, the performer on the stage, the child who plays and demands to be seen. Pride, in its purest form, is not arrogance but dignity, the recognition that each soul carries a unique radiance. Yet pride's shadow is hubris, the refusal to see beyond oneself, the illusion that the world exists only as a mirror. This is the test of the lion: to shine without blinding, to rule without oppressing, to stand at the center without forgetting the circle. In myth, this archetype is reflected in the solar heroes. Hercules, born of divine fire, must endure trials that test his pride and strength. Apollo, radiant archer of light, brings clarity, but also arrogance. Even Christ, described as the Lion of Judah, carries the archetype, a figure whose radiance transforms the world, but only through sacrifice of self into something greater. The lion always teaches the same lesson. The ego must be strong enough to stand, yet humble enough to serve. Leo's archetype, then, is not simply vanity or ambition. It is the mystery of the solar self, the recognition that each human being is both a sovereign flame and a servant of the whole. The lion roars not to dominate, but to remind the world that the spark of the divine lives in the heart of the individual. That is Leo's gift and its eternal trial. The water-bearer walks across the ages carrying a vessel, pouring streams of living water into the world. Unlike the lion, who claims the throne at the center, the water-bearer stands at the edge, a figure of service, of vision, of disruption. Aquarius, fixed air, has always been misunderstood because it appears paradoxical. It is ruled in ancient astrology by Saturn, the planet of time, structure, and limitation. Yet in modern astrology, it is also ruled by Uranus, the planet of shock, rebellion, and sudden change. To hold both is to embody contradiction. Aquarius is at once the architect of systems and the breaker of them, the reformer who knows that every age must one day be overturned. In myth, the water-bearer is often associated with Ganymede, the beautiful youth taken to Olympus by Zeus, chosen to pour ambrosia for the gods. But beneath this story is a deeper current. To pour water is to distribute life equally, to refresh not one but all. Aquarius symbolizes this generosity of vision, the impulse to move beyond personal pride and into collective awakening. Where Leo says, "I am the center," Aquarius whispers, "We are many. The future belongs to all of us." This is why Aquarius has always been linked with prophets, reformers, and revolutionaries. Those who disrupt the old order to bring about a new vision. Astrologer Liz Green describes Aquarius as the outsider who becomes the reformer. Detached enough to see beyond convention, it often stands at odds with society, yet it carries the blueprint for what society might become. Figures like Galileo, who challenged the order of the heavens, or Martin Luther King Jr., who carried a vision of justice, reflect this archetype. They bore the vessel of Aquarius, pouring it into a world not yet ready to receive it. This is why Aquarius often appears strange, eccentric, or ahead of its time. Its vision is not for today, but for tomorrow. But Aquarius carries its own shadow. Detachment can become coldness. Rebellion can become destruction for its own sake. Vision can become ideology, rigid and unyielding. The water-bearer must remember that pouring water into the world is an act of service, not domination. Without the warmth of Leo's heart, Aquarius risks becoming inhuman, a vision that forgets the individuals it seeks to serve. In the same way, technology, one of Aquarius's domains, can liberate but also enslave if stripped of compassion. The water-bearer is therefore a paradoxical figure, a servant and a rebel, a builder and a breaker, a visionary and an exile. Its role in the Zodiac is to remind humanity that we are not alone, that the future is never private, that awakening belongs to the collective. In this sense, Aquarius is the opposite of Leo, not the sovereign, but the seer, not the radiant center, but the one who carries the stream of life outward. Both are necessary, both are sacred, and both are locked in eternal dialogue. Aquarius's archetype is the call of the future itself. It is rebellion, not for pride, but for awakening. It is vision, not for the self, but for the whole. And though the world may resist, the water-bearer continues to pour, carrying forward the destiny that pride alone can never contain. The rulers of Leo and Aquarius could not be more different. The sun, radiant and unrelenting, is the source of all life on earth. It does not waver, it does not dim. It burns with a steady light that nourishes, commands, and sustains. To be ruled by the sun, as Leo is to embody visibility, pride, creativity, and the central force of identity. The sun asks nothing and gives everything. It is the archetype of sovereignty itself, the cosmic king at the center of the solar system. Leo, fixed fire, reflects this archetype in human life. The heart, the ego, the radiant flame that says I am. Saturn, by contrast, is the great limiter. Where the sun radiates endlessly, Saturn contracts. Where the sun offers life, Saturn imposes death, boundaries, and time. Known to the Greeks as Kronos, Saturn is the devourer, the taskmaster, the lord of karma. Its lessons are not immediate gifts, but long trials, demanding patience, discipline, and humility. To be ruled by Saturn, as Aquarius once was in traditional astrology, is to carry the burden of structure, of order, of responsibility for the collective. Saturn's presence in Aquarius reminds us that vision cannot exist without form. Dreams remain shadows unless they are given structure, and Saturn is the builder of that structure. In modern astrology, Aquarius is also assigned Uranus as co-ruler, the planet of shocks, disruption, and sudden awakenings. Discovered in 1781, during the period of revolutions in America and France, Uranus reflects the Aquarian spirit of rebellion and liberation. Where Saturn demands structure, Uranus demands freedom. Together, they form a paradox. Saturn insists on law, Uranus insists on breaking it. Saturn demands order, Uranus demands revolution. And yet, in Aquarius, both are necessary. Vision requires boundaries to become real, and structure requires disruption to evolve. The Aquarian archetype therefore balances these two forces, Saturn's gravity and Uranus's lightning. The conflict between Leo and Aquarius is shaped by their rulers. The sun shines at the center, demanding recognition. Saturn waits at the edge, reminding all things of their limits. Uranus breaks through those limits with unexpected force. This cosmic triangle defines their opposition. Leo insists on self-expression, the brilliance of the individual, the radiance of ego. Aquarius resists, reminding humanity that no individual, no matter how radiant, can eclipse the collective. Saturn imposes order. Uranus breaks it open, and the sun stands as the eternal flame. Their dialogue is written into the sky itself. Astrologers like Dane Rudier have noted that the sun represents purpose, while Saturn represents necessity. The two often appear in conflict in the natal chart, pulling between radiant desire and the weight of responsibility. Add Uranus to the mix, and the struggle becomes even sharper. The sudden shock that destabilizes both ego and structure alike. This is the essence of the Leo-Aquarius axis. It is not a quiet balance, but a tension between cosmic forces. Radiance versus restraint, self versus collective, stability versus revolution. The battle between ego and vision cannot be understood without these rulers. The sun crowns Leo with fire, while Saturn and Uranus charge Aquarius with the dual task of preserving structure and breaking it open. Their interplay explains why the opposition is eternal. Ego will always seek to shine, vision will always seek to liberate, and the cosmos ensures both will challenge each other until the balance is found. History is a stage where the archetypes of Leo and Aquarius have played their drama again and again. On one side, kingship, the lion enthroned, the sovereign radiating authority, claiming the right to rule. On the other, revolution, the crowd stirred to action, the collective voice rising against the crown. This eternal struggle is not confined to one culture or one century. It is a pattern, woven into the very structure of human history, reflecting the opposition of Leo and Aquarius across the zodiac wheel. Kingship has always embodied the Leo archetype, from the pharaohs of Egypt to the emperors of Rome, from medieval monarchs to modern cults of personality. Rulers have stood at the center like the sun, demanding loyalty, embodying pride, radiance, and sovereignty. The divine right of kings in Europe was explicitly solar. Monarchs were said to rule by divine light, chosen to shine above the masses. In France, Louis XIV declared himself the Sun King, the living embodiment of Leo's fire, proclaiming, "I am the state." His radiance was literalized in art, architecture, and ritual, casting him as the center of an entire nation's orbit. But every crown creates its own shadow. With kingship comes hierarchy, inequality, and eventually tyranny. And where tyranny rises, revolution follows. The Aquarian archetype awakens in the visionaries, the rebels, the reformers. The American and French revolutions erupted under Uranus's discovery and the slow turning of Saturn's cycle, embodying Aquarius's archetype of collective uprising. The cry for liberty, equality, fraternity was an Aquarian roar against the lion's pride. The guillotine fell upon the Sun King's heir, proving that no radiance could withstand the will of the collective forever. This pattern repeats. In Rome, emperors built thrones of gold, only to face rebellion from their own legions and the demands of the people. In Russia, the tsars fell to revolutionaries who carried a vision of equality. In myth, too, we see the same story. Zeus dethroned Kronos. Prometheus defied the gods to bring fire to humanity. Enki disrupted the established order to teach wisdom. These are Aquarian acts: rebellion against authority, vision breaking through the weight of ego. Yet the story is not simple victory of one over the other. Revolutions that destroy kings often create new kings. Leaders of the people rise, only to become sovereigns themselves. Napoleon, born of revolution, crowned himself emperor. The Soviet vision of equality hardened into dictatorship. The archetypal battle persists because ego and vision cannot exist without each other. The lion creates the order, the water bearer disrupts it, and together they push humanity forward in cycles of rise and collapse. Astrology reveals this rhythm as the fixed cross. Leo opposite Aquarius, Taurus opposite Scorpio. Stability and change forever in tension. The lesson is clear. Kingship without vision calcifies into tyranny. Revolution without heart collapses into chaos. Only when the lion and the water bearer recognize each other's necessity can a balance emerge. The ruler must serve the people, and the people must honor the ruler's role. The age of kings stretches like a golden thread through human history. Across continents and cultures, civilizations exalted the archetype of the sovereign. Radiant, central, commanding, like the sun itself. This was Leo's energy made flesh, embodied in rulers whose authority seemed absolute, whose thrones mirrored the heavens. To the ancient world, kingship was not merely political. It was cosmological. The king was the axis around which society revolved, just as the sun was the axis of the sky. In Egypt, Pharaoh was not simply a ruler, but a god incarnate. His throne was the lion's throne, flanked by statues of lions to symbolize strength, sovereignty, and solar power. The lion goddess Sekhmet, radiant with the fire of Ra, guarded the cosmic order through both ferocity and healing. The pharaoh was seen as the living Horus, son of the sun god, whose role was to uphold Ma'at, the principle of cosmic balance. His power was not questioned because it was believed to radiate from the very heart of the divine. This is pure Leo energy, rulership as solar radiance, the embodiment of cosmic centrality. In Mesopotamia, the lion became a recurring symbol of kingship. Kings were depicted in art slaying lions, not to diminish the animal, but to show mastery over the forces of nature. Lion hunts, carved into Assyrian palace walls, showed rulers like Ashurbanipal standing triumphant, embodying the archetype of the lion who rules through courage and strength. The king was the radiant one, chosen to bring order to the chaos of the world. Again, we see Leo's solar fire transposed into human society. The Greeks exalted kingship through myth. Heroes like Heracles embodied Leo's archetype, crowned with the Nemean lion skin after slaying the beast, marking his transformation into a radiant figure of divine strength. Alexander the Great consciously modeled himself as the son of Zeus Ammon, radiating solar fire as he carved an empire across the known world. His lion-headed imagery and solar associations tied him directly to the archetype of Leo, the sovereign whose radiance defined the age. Even in cultures far removed from one another, the lion throne appeared. In India, Vishnu is often depicted as Narasimha, the man-lion who preserves cosmic balance. In China, imperial thrones were guarded by stone lions, protectors of sacred authority. The archetype repeats again and again. Leo's radiance enthroned as kingship, visible in every corner of the ancient world. But with exaltation comes shadow. The age of kings also bore the seeds of tyranny. Radiance became pride, sovereignty became domination. The king's solar power could blind as easily as it could illuminate. Civilizations flourished under the warmth of Leo's fire, but often collapsed under the weight of its excess. Yet even in collapse, the archetype endured, because humanity has always needed its sun, its center, its lion, its sovereign. The Age of Kings was humanity's exaltation of Leo's archetype, a time when the lion ruled openly, enthroned in gold, radiant in glory. And though the lion's throne may crumble, the archetype itself continues to live in our myths, our symbols, and our longing for leadership that shines with the fire of the sun. The archetype of Aquarius has always been tied to visionaries, those who see beyond the present order, who pour out new truths for the collective, often at great personal cost. If the Age of Kings exalted Leo's solar sovereignty, the Age of Visionaries exalted the Aquarian water-bearer, the one who carries ideas ahead of their time. These figures rarely sat on thrones. They stood on the margins, in deserts, in caves, on mountaintops, or in city squares. Their power was not crowns or armies, but visions, truths that disrupted the old order and seeded the future. In the ancient Near East, prophets arose to challenge kings and call societies back to higher laws. Figures like Jeremiah, Isaiah, and Ezekiel in the Hebrew tradition carried visions of justice and reform. They often spoke in symbolic language, proclaiming that the old ways of corruption could not last. These prophets reflect the Aquarian archetype, detached enough to stand apart from power, yet compelled to speak for the collective good. Their words poured like water into the parched soil of history, nourishing future generations even when rejected in their own time. In Greece, the philosopher Socrates embodied a similar role. He disrupted Athenian society not with violence, but with questions. His pursuit of truth above popularity, his refusal to bow to convention, marked him as a classic Aquarian figure. For this, he was condemned to drink hemlock. His death, like many Aquarian lives, was a testimony to vision, a truth that could not be silenced even by execution. In India, reformers like the Buddha carried this archetype forward. Born a prince, Siddhartha Gautama abandoned the trappings of Leo's royalty to become a wanderer, seeking vision beyond material wealth. His teachings were radical in their time, rejecting caste distinctions, emphasizing liberation for all beings, and envisioning a path of awakening that transcended hierarchy. The Buddha was a water-bearer, pouring wisdom into the collective stream of humanity, reshaping civilization itself. The Aquarian archetype also reveals itself in later history. Martin Luther sparked the Reformation by challenging the authority of the Catholic Church, translating sacred texts so that truth could be shared by the people rather than hoarded by hierarchy. His act shattered the lion's throne of centralized religious power. In the 20th century, leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. embodied the same spirit, carrying visions of non-violence, justice, and equality. Their authority came not from crowns but from conviction. They were water-bearers, pouring their vision into the world even as resistance rose against them. The age of visionaries is often turbulent because Aquarius disrupts the stability Leo thrives upon. Visionaries face exile, persecution, or death because their visions threaten the established order. Yet history shows that their words outlived them. The collective eventually awakens to what they saw long before. This is the paradox of Aquarius. It is often rejected in the present, but vindicated by the future. The age of visionaries is humanity's exaltation of Aquarius. It reminds us that while kings may rule through radiance, visionaries shape destiny through revelation. They stand apart, carrying vessels of truth, pouring waters of awakening into the world, waters that flow quietly at first, but eventually reshape empires and generations. Across the ancient world, the archetype of the solar hero blazed in myth and legend. These were not ordinary figures, but radiant ones, beings whose lives mirrored the sun itself, carrying light, order, and sovereignty into a world often threatened by chaos. Wherever humanity looked to the skies, the sun was the most constant of powers, the source of life and the visible heart of existence. And so, cultures projected its qualities into their heroes and gods, giving birth to the Leo archetype long before astrology gave it a name. In Egypt, Ra was the great solar deity, the one who sailed across the sky each day and descended into the underworld at night, only to be reborn at dawn. He embodied the eternal cycle of death and resurrection, and his radiant eye was said to strike down those who opposed cosmic order. Pharaohs themselves were linked to Ra, inheriting his solar authority. In Leo's language, Ra is the lion at the center, the sovereign who sustains the world through his radiance. To resist him was to resist life itself. In Greece, Apollo reflected the same archetype, god of the sun, music, prophecy, and healing. Apollo was the golden archer whose arrows brought both light and death. He embodied clarity, beauty, and divine order. His temples at Delphi proclaimed the solar hero's wisdom. Know thyself. This phrase captures Leo's essence, self-awareness as sovereignty, ego as a sacred flame. Apollo was celebrated as youthful, radiant, and noble, embodying the dignity that Leo represents in human form. Yet even he was not free from pride, and his myths warn of arrogance that blinds. Further east, in Vedic India, Surya was the sun god who rode across the heavens in a chariot pulled by 7 horses, representing the days of the week or the rays of light. Surya's radiance was life-giving, his power sustaining Dharma, the cosmic order. Kings sought his blessing to legitimize their rule, tying political power to solar sovereignty. Surya, like Leo, was not merely a god of light, but of legitimacy, the archetype that says rulership flows from radiance itself. Even in the Americas, solar heroes appear. The Inca worshipped Inti, the sun god, from whom their emperors claimed descent. Inti was central to their cosmology, a divine source of power and guidance. His golden temple in Cusco was the radiant heart of the empire, much like the sun at the center of the sky. The emperor, as the child of Inti, embodied Leo's archetype in flesh, ruling as the earthly reflection of solar divinity. The solar hero is therefore universal. Whether Ra, Apollo, Surya, or Inti, The story is always the same. A radiant being, sovereign and central, whose light sustains the world. Yet within these myths lies a warning. Solar power, when untempered, can scorch as easily as it warms. Heroes blinded by pride, like Phaethon attempting to drive Apollo's chariot, often fall. The archetype of Leo is exalted in myth because it is both inspiring and dangerous. The sun gives life but also consumes. The ego grants identity but risks tyranny. The myth of the solar hero endures because it tells the truth of the Leo archetype. We need the lion's radiance, the sovereign's courage, the hero's flame. But we must also remember that every sun casts shadows. True sovereignty lies not in domination, but in balance. To shine brightly, yet never forget that light is given for all. The myth of the cosmic rebel appears again and again across cultures, always carrying the essence of Aquarius. The figure who defies authority, disrupts order, and gifts humanity with vision. Where the solar hero reflects Leo's radiance and sovereignty, the cosmic rebel embodies the Aquarian current. Rebellion not for pride, but for the awakening of the many. This archetype is older than history itself, encoded in stories of gods, tricksters, and prophets who refuse to bow to thrones. In Greek mythology, Prometheus is the clearest expression of this archetype. A titan, not an Olympian, he dared to steal fire from the gods and deliver it to mortals. This act was more than generosity. Fire symbolized knowledge, technology, and divine power. By giving it to humanity, Prometheus disrupted the cosmic hierarchy, empowering mortals to rise above their assigned place. For this rebellion, Zeus chained him to a rock where an eagle devoured his liver each day. Yet even in punishment, Prometheus remained defiant. His act echoes the Aquarian truth. Vision comes through sacrifice, rebellion carries pain, but humanity awakens through both. In Mesopotamian myth, the god Enki reflects a similar archetype. Associated with wisdom, water, and creation, Enki often subverted the will of the higher gods to aid humanity. When Enlil sought to punish mortals with floods or curses, Enki found ways to preserve life, teaching humans rituals, technologies, and survival. Like Prometheus, Enki was a water-bearer, pouring wisdom into the world despite divine opposition. His actions embody Aquarius's paradox: rebellion not to destroy, but to protect, to awaken, to uplift. In the Hebrew tradition, figures like Moses and the prophets carry the same current. Moses defied Pharaoh's throne, leading the oppressed into liberation, guided not by kingship, but by vision. Prophets like Amos and Isaiah denounced the corruption of rulers, speaking truth to power even when it brought exile or death. Their rebellion was not against divine law, but against human tyranny, an Aquarian act of aligning vision with justice. Other cultures echo this archetype. In Polynesian myth, Maui stole fire from the underworld and raised the sky to create space for humanity. In Native American traditions, trickster figures like Coyote or Raven disrupted the established order, often through chaos, yet gifting wisdom or tools for survival. These rebels were not rulers, they were outsiders, but their gifts shaped civilizations. Astrologically, Aquarius holds this myth within its symbolism. It is fixed air, detached enough to step outside the collective, yet compelled to pour its vision back into it. The cosmic rebel stands alone, misunderstood, often punished. Yet their vision becomes the seed of new worlds. Prometheus's fire led to civilization. Enki's wisdom preserved humanity. Moses' defiance birthed a people. Again and again, rebellion against authority carries the future in its vessel. The myth of the cosmic rebel reminds us that Aquarius is not about comfort. It is about disruption. It is the whisper that says the throne cannot last forever, that the lion's pride must be challenged, that the collective must awaken. And though rebels may suffer, their gifts endure. They are the water bearers, pouring vision into the world, not for themselves, but for all of us. The fire of Leo is radiant, creative, life-giving. It is the warmth of the sun, the courage of the lion, the sovereign who inspires others with presence. But every flame casts a shadow, and the brighter the fire, the more dangerous its excess. When ego, Leo's greatest gift, is distorted, it becomes tyranny. What begins as sovereignty devolves into domination. What begins as dignity twists into arrogance. And the ruler who once shone as a source of life becomes the very force that suffocates it. History is filled with examples of this shadow. The same archetype that gave us enlightened kings also gave us despots. Louis XIV, the Sun King, declared, "I am the state." His radiance built palaces like Versailles, dazzling in their glory, yet draining the lifeblood of the people. The lion enthroned became blind to those beyond the throne. In Rome, emperors like Nero embodied this excess. Obsessed with performance and spectacle, he let the empire burn under his rule, his ego unable to see beyond his own desires. In these stories, Leo's flame no longer warmed the world, it scorched it. Psychology echoes this truth. Carl Jung warned of the dangers of inflation. When the ego identifies with archetypal power, instead of serving as the conscious bridge between self and soul, the ego believes itself to be the whole. This is Leo's shadow. The individual mistakes their radiance as absolute, forgetting the collective, forgetting the larger order. In this state, pride blinds and power isolates. What began as a noble roar becomes a deafening command. Even myth reveals the peril of untempered ego. Phaethon, son of Apollo, begged to drive his father's solar chariot across the sky. Consumed with pride, he could not control the horses of fire. The chariot veered off course, scorching the earth and threatening the heavens. Zeus struck him down with a thunderbolt to prevent greater catastrophe. This is the warning. When ego seeks to claim divine fire without discipline, destruction follows. Astrology teaches that oppositions exist to temper these shadows. Leo's pride is balanced by Aquarius's detachment. Where Leo says, "I am the center," Aquarius whispers, "You are one among many." Without this counterbalance, the lion becomes a tyrant. But when the two are in dialogue, the ego can shine without consuming, lead without oppressing, inspire without dominating. The shadow of Leo is not inevitable, but it is always possible. Its lesson is humility, not the erasure of self, but the recognition that ego must serve the soul, not replace it. True sovereignty does not crush others, it uplifts them. True fire does not blind, it illuminates. The lion's roar must protect the pride, not silence it. The shadow warns us. The fire of ego can burn down empires, but it also reminds us that within every flame lies the potential for light. The choice is eternal. Will the fire warm, or will it consume? That is the trial of Leo. Aquarius carries the archetype of the visionary, the reformer, the water-bearer, who pours truth into a thirsty world. It is the sign that sees beyond the present, that dares to imagine new systems, new futures, new freedoms. But vision, like fire, has a shadow. When ungrounded, it becomes chaos. When detached from compassion, it becomes cold ideology. When obsessed with rebellion for its own sake, it collapses into destruction rather than creation. The Aquarian gift of vision is sacred, but without balance it can unravel the very fabric it seeks to mend. History offers countless examples of this shadow. The French Revolution, born from a cry for liberty, equality, and fraternity, descended into the terror. Heads rolled beneath the guillotine not only of tyrants, but of those who questioned the new order. Vision gave way to chaos. Rebellion hardened into ideology, and the collective that sought freedom devoured itself. Similarly, the Russian Revolution carried the Aquarian promise of equality, yet quickly collapsed into authoritarian control. The dream of liberation was swallowed by rigid dogma and violent repression. In both cases, the water poured by Aquarius became a flood that drowned instead of nourished. Myth, too, warns of this danger. Prometheus brought fire to humanity, but his rebellion against Zeus also unleashed suffering. His gift was sacred, but it came with unintended consequences. A reminder that vision always carries risk. In the Mesopotamian stories of Enki, his wisdom saved humanity, but his trickster nature sometimes disrupted the balance of the gods, stirring chaos as much as clarity. The archetype of the rebel is necessary, but without discernment, it destabilizes the very order that sustains life. Astrologically, Aquarius's shadow emerges when its detachment becomes absolute. Fixed air can become fixed ideology, unbending and unyielding, certain that its vision is the only truth. In psychology, this resembles what Jung called inflation of the intellect. The mind cut off from the heart, the visionary so consumed with the abstract that it forgets the human. Technology, one of Aquarius's domains, reflects this shadow vividly. When guided by wisdom, it liberates. When stripped of ethics, it enslaves. Nuclear energy, social media, artificial intelligence, all carry Aquarian brilliance, but also the potential for chaos if left unchecked. This is why the opposition to Leo is essential. Where Aquarius can drift into coldness, Leo brings warmth. Where Aquarius can dissolve identity in the collective, Leo insists on the dignity of the individual. Without this balance, the water-bearer risks pouring poison instead of life. Vision becomes fanaticism. Rebellion becomes destruction. Freedom becomes fragmentation. Yet even in its shadow, Aquarius teaches. Its chaos reveals that vision must be grounded in compassion, that rebellion must serve life, not ideology. The water-bearer cannot simply pour endlessly. It must pour with care, with heart, with the humility to remember that the collective is made of individuals. The shadow of Aquarius is chaos, but its purpose is not to condemn. It is to remind us that vision alone is not enough. To transform the world, vision must unite with love. The mind must remember the heart. Only then can rebellion give rise to awakening rather than ruin. In the land of Egypt, the lion was never just an animal. It was a living emblem of sovereignty, a creature that stood at the threshold between chaos and order. To sit upon the lion throne was to declare oneself not only ruler of a people, but protector of the cosmic balance known as Ma'at. Egyptian kingship was always more than political, it was divine. And the lion, radiant with solar fire, became its most enduring guardian. The goddess Sekhmet embodied this archetype in fierce form, depicted with the head of a lioness and the blazing sun disk above her crown. She was known as the Powerful One, unleashed as the wrath of Ra to punish those who defied cosmic order. Yet she was not only destruction. Sekhmet was also a healer, embodying the paradox of Leo's archetype, fire that can burn or heal depending on how it is wielded. Pharaohs invoked her power to defend their reign, calling upon her ferocity to strike down enemies and preserve stability. In doing so, they align themselves with Leo's essence, the lion whose roar sustains order through visible, commanding force. Lion imagery surrounded the throne itself. Carvings, statues, and chairs flanked by lions signified strength and divine authority. The throne of Tutankhamun, discovered in his tomb, was guarded by lions at its arms, a clear statement that the young king's rule was under the protection of solar fire. In temple reliefs, lions often appeared as guardians of gateways, watching over the passage between realms. Just as Leo is the sign of the sun, Egypt's lions stood as symbols of the solar throne, blazing with authority and guardianship. The Sphinx, too, though a hybrid figure, reflects this same symbolism. With the body of a lion and the head of a king, it gazes eternally east, toward the rising sun. Its form unites human sovereignty with leonine strength, suggesting that true rulership demands both intellect and power, vision and ferocity. Scholars like John Anthony West and Robert Schoch have argued that the Sphinx is far older than dynastic Egypt, linking it to forgotten epochs. Yet its form, carved as lion body and king head, remains unmistakably solar. The eternal throne of Leo expressed in stone. Egyptian kingship drew legitimacy from its solar associations. Pharaoh was considered the living Horus, the son of the sun god Ra. To rule was to radiate, to shine as the sun shines, to sit at the center of the earthly cosmos. The lion was the guardian of this radiance, ensuring that kingship remained aligned with cosmic order. Without the lion's power, the throne was merely a chair. With it, the throne became a cosmic axis. In this way, Egypt exalted the lion not as a mere beast of the wild, but as a divine guardian. Its presence reminded rulers that sovereignty was not theirs alone. It was a trust, a flame to be tended, a radiance to be shared. The lion throne was both privilege and responsibility. To sit upon it was to embody Leo's archetype fully. Sovereign, radiant, and bound to protect the cosmic order entrusted to human hands. In Greek mythology, the figure of Ganymede carries the essence of Aquarius. He was no warrior king or radiant hero. He was a shepherd boy of extraordinary beauty, chosen not for power but for vision. A mortal lifted beyond his station into the realm of the divine. According to Homer and later writers, Zeus, enamored by the boy's radiance, carried him to Olympus, either by transforming into an eagle or sending one to seize him. Ganymede was given the role of cupbearer to the gods, replacing Hebe, the daughter of Hera. With his vessel of divine nectar, he poured ambrosia, the drink of immortality, for the Olympians. This myth has always been more than a story of divine favor. It is the archetype of the water-bearer, the one who carries sacred nourishment to others. Ganymede did not keep the nectar for himself. He distributed it, offering vitality to the gods, ensuring the order of Olympus endured. This act reflects Aquarius's calling, to pour knowledge, vision, and awakening, not for personal gain, but for the benefit of the whole. His role was service, yet his elevation marked him as chosen, a bridge between mortals and immortals, between humanity and the divine. Astrologers and mythologists such as Carl Kerenyi have emphasized that Ganymede represents a break from traditional power. Unlike Zeus or Apollo, his strength was not martial. His gift was beauty, purity, and a kind of innocence that carried wisdom. By raising him to Olympus, the myth suggests that even those outside the hierarchy of kings and heroes may embody divine vision. This is Aquarius's hallmark. It elevates the outsider, the eccentric, the marginalized, and reveals their role in shaping the future. The vessel Ganymede carried, is itself rich with symbolism. In the language of myth, water is always more than liquid. It is memory, wisdom, life force. To pour water is to distribute these gifts freely. In Mesopotamian myth, Enki poured the waters of the Abzu to create civilization. In biblical imagery, water symbolizes spirit and revelation. In Ganymede's story, the nectar of the gods flows through him, reminding us that Aquarius's gift is not ownership but circulation, to carry vision into the world and to share it with all. Yet the myth also carries tension. Hera resented Ganymede, seeing in him a disruption of order, a challenge to her daughter's role. His presence on Olympus was controversial, even among the divine. This echoes Aquarius's fate, to disrupt, to challenge, to be misunderstood. The water-bearer's service may appear humble, yet it transforms the entire order of the world. Ganymede's role, though secondary in appearance, was essential to the god's immortality. In the heavens, his myth lives on as the constellation Aquarius, the water-bearer pouring endlessly into the sky. Each year, during the rainy season in Greece, this constellation marked the floods that nourished the land. His myth, his vessel, his pouring, all were reminders that life continues through vision shared, not hoarded. Ganymede is the eternal Aquarian figure, chosen not for sovereignty, but for service, for the gift of carrying divine waters that awaken and sustain. At the core of Leo's archetype lies the heart, not only the physical heart that beats within the body, but the spiritual heart, the radiant center of identity, purpose, and destiny. In astrology, Leo rules the heart, just as the sun rules the zodiac. It is fixed fire, steady and unwavering, a flame that does not flicker but endures. To speak of Leo's heart is to speak of the keeper of personal destiny, the place within each soul that proclaims, "I am here to shine in a way no other can." The symbolism is not accidental. The sun itself is a heart, the blazing center of our solar system, pumping light and energy through its vast body of planets, sustaining life with every pulse of radiation. Just as the heart circulates blood, the sun circulates vitality. Without it, all would wither. In Leo, the heart becomes destiny. It is the recognition that the individual is not an accident, but a radiant spark of the divine flame, called to live fully, visibly, and courageously. Myth and culture affirm this connection. In Egyptian cosmology, the heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at in the Hall of Judgment. It was not the mind or the body that determined destiny, but the heart, the seat of truth. In Christian tradition, the Sacred Heart of Christ radiates light and compassion, a symbol of divine love embodied in human form. In Hindu tradition, the Anahata Chakra, located at the heart, is the center of balance and awakening, the bridge between the material and spiritual realms. Each of these echoes Leo's archetype, the heart as the vessel of destiny, radiant, central, unyielding. But Leo's heart is not merely warmth, it is also trial. Pride and ego, when unchecked, can harden the heart, turning radiance into arrogance. The lesson of Leo is not simply to shine, but to shine in a way that uplifts. The sun does not hoard its light, it gives freely. In the same way, Leo's destiny is not selfish glory, but service through radiance, to become a source of courage, creativity, and inspiration for others. The heart that shines for itself alone becomes tyranny. The heart that shines for the world becomes legacy. Astrologer Dane Rudger described Leo as the sign of creative actualization. It is where individuality finds expression, where the soul steps into the world not as a shadow, but as a presence. This is why Leo is associated with children, play, art, and performance. These are not trivial pursuits. They are expressions of the heart's truth, revelations of the soul's destiny. To deny the heart is to deny the sun itself. The heart of Leo is a reminder that destiny is not imposed from without. It burns from within. Each soul carries its own radiance, its own signature of light, its own reason for being. And in the archetype of Leo, that radiance is not hidden. It must be lived, embodied, and shared. For in shining, the heart fulfills its purpose. And in fulfilling its purpose, it keeps the rhythm of destiny alive. Aquarius does not rule the heart. It rules the mind, but not the mind of one individual, rather the mind of the collective. Fixed air, steady in its thought and vision, Aquarius is the keeper of humanity's larger destiny, the blueprint of the future etched into consciousness itself. Where Leo proclaims, "I am," Aquarius whispers, "We are." This is why the water bearer is not pouring for himself. He pours for all, carrying insight that transcends personal need and speaks to the fate of generations. The association of Aquarius with air is crucial. Air is invisible, intangible, yet it connects all life. It is the breath we share, the current that moves between beings. In the same way, Aquarius's mind perceives patterns beyond the individual, collective structures, social systems, cultural shifts. It sees what ties us together, and it envisions what those ties might become. To call Aquarius the keeper of collective destiny is to recognize its role as the architect of humanity's unfolding story. Traditionally ruled by Saturn, Aquarius carries the weight of responsibility. Vision must be grounded in structure, or it collapses into fantasy. This is why Aquarian reformers so often manifest as builders as well as dreamers. They construct systems of law, governance, and philosophy that reshape entire societies. Yet Aquarius is also ruled in modern astrology by Uranus, the planet of shocks and breakthroughs. Uranus adds the lightning strike to Saturn's stone. Sudden insight, disruption, revolution. The Aquarian mind therefore oscillates between two poles, the patient architect and the radical rebel. Both are necessary to shape the collective path. History reveals this archetype clearly. The great reformers and thinkers who reshaped humanity often carried the Aquarian imprint. Figures like Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln envisioned new structures of governance. Philosophers of the Enlightenment, from Voltaire to Rousseau, spoke of liberty and equality. Revolutionaries like Gandhi and Nelson Mandela carried visions that transcended their personal lives, shaping the destiny of entire nations. Their strength was not in charisma alone, though many had it, but in the power of an idea whose time had come. Ideas, once released, flow like air, spreading invisibly until they permeate the whole. Yet Aquarius's mind carries its dangers. Detached from the heart, it can become cold, sacrificing individuals for the sake of the vision. Ideologies born of Aquarian brilliance can calcify into rigid dogma, forgetting the humanity they were meant to serve. History bears witness. Revolutions that promised freedom hardened into authoritarian systems when vision lost its balance. This is the shadow of Aquarius's mind. The collective exalted at the expense of the individual. But when balanced, Aquarius fulfills its highest calling. It reminds humanity that destiny is not written by kings alone. It is written in the shared breath of people, in the flow of ideas, in the visions that ripple through the collective. Aquarius's mind is not content with the present. It holds the future, sees the architecture of what might be, and pours that vision into the world like water from an eternal vessel. Since the beginning of astrology, the Sun and Saturn have been cast as opposites in the human imagination. The Sun is radiance, vitality, and life itself. Saturn is limitation, time, and the inevitability of death. One gives, the other takes. One warms, the other chills. In myth and symbol, they are father and son, king and devourer, life and boundary. Their opposition is not random. It is the heartbeat of existence itself. For without the Sun, there would be no life. Without Saturn, there would be no order. The Sun, as ruler of Leo, embodies the essence of visibility and sovereignty, is the central star, the light by which we see and live. In psychological terms, it represents the conscious ego, the center of identity, the place where the individual says, "I am here, I shine." Saturn, by contrast, is the furthest visible planet, the ancient boundary of the known cosmos. To the ancients, it was the edge of reality itself. Cold, slow, and unyielding, Saturn symbolized time's weight and karma's law. As ruler of Aquarius in traditional astrology, it represents the collective, the structures that outlast individuals, the truths that do not bend to ego. The battle between them plays out in myth. In Hesiod's theogony, Kronos, Saturn, devours his children, attempting to prevent them from rising. Yet one child survives, Zeus, associated with the sky and the thunderbolt, who eventually overthrows his father. This myth reflects the eternal tension. Saturn tries to devour the radiance of the future, but the flame cannot be extinguished. The Sun always rises, defying the cold weight of time. But in return, Saturn imposes humility on the radiant, reminding them that pride without boundary becomes tyranny. Astrology interprets this tension in human life as the push and pull between self-expression and limitation. The Sun urges us to shine, to live with courage, to claim our center. Saturn reminds us that every light casts a shadow, every flame is bound by time, and every ego must bow to responsibility. The Sun says, "You are infinite." Saturn says, "You are mortal." Their battle is eternal because both truths are necessary. In the heavens, their cycles tell the story. The Sun moves swiftly, completing its circuit each year, marking seasons and growth. Saturn moves slowly, taking nearly 30 years to circle the Zodiac, shaping generations and testing structures. When the Sun and Saturn align in opposition or conjunction in astrology, the effects are often palpable. Moments of testing, confrontation, or revelation. Ego is measured against reality. Vision is weighed against time. Pride is challenged by responsibility. This cosmic struggle mirrors the Leo-Aquarius axis. Leo, ruled by the Sun, represents individuality, pride, and the radiant heart. Aquarius, ruled by Saturn, and later Uranus, represents the collective, time, and the demands of the future. Their opposition is not meant to destroy, but to balance. Without the Sun, Saturn is despair. Without Saturn, the Sun is hubris. Together, they create the rhythm of destiny. Radiance tested by time. Vision grounded in responsibility. The battle in the heavens is the same battle within the soul. To live fully is to honor the Sun. To live wisely is to honor Saturn. The balance between them is the eternal work of being human. Aquarius is one of the few signs in astrology to carry a dual rulership, and within that paradox lies its mystery. For thousands of years, Saturn was its sole ruler, the slow, cold planet at the edge of the visible cosmos. Saturn is burden, discipline, and time. It is structure that binds and tradition that endures. But in 1781, The discovery of Uranus by William Herschel changed everything. Uranus, invisible to the ancients, burst into human awareness during the very years of revolution, the American and French uprisings, the Enlightenment, the birth of modern democracy. Suddenly, Aquarius was seen not only as Saturn's sign, but also as Uranus's, carrying both the weight of order and the spark of rebellion. To understand why, one must look deeper into the nature of these planets. Saturn demands form. It is the planet of boundaries, insisting that every vision be grounded, tested, and proven through time. Its energy is slow but enduring, shaping civilizations with laws, traditions, and social contracts. In Aquarius, Saturn insists that the collective must be structured, that freedom without responsibility collapses into chaos. Uranus, by contrast, is sudden. Its orbit is tilted, its rotation unlike any other planet. It embodies eccentricity, shock, and the lightning strike of innovation. Astrologically, Uranus brings disruption, breakthroughs, and rebellion. It represents the unexpected spark that shatters tradition, revealing truths the old order could not contain. To call Uranus a co-ruler of Aquarius is to acknowledge that the water-bearer is not only a builder, but also a breaker. The architect who tears down walls as readily as he raises them. This dual rulership explains Aquarius's paradoxical nature. It is conservative and radical, disciplined and rebellious, traditional and futuristic. At times, it enforces rigid systems. At others, it demolishes them overnight. Think of the French Revolution. Inspired by vision and ideals of equality, it dismantled monarchy and hierarchy, yet quickly attempted to impose new systems of order. Saturn and Uranus dance together in blood and law, showing Aquarius's double-edged gift. Psychology offers a mirror for this duality. Carl Jung spoke of individuation as the balance between order and chaos. Too much structure suffocates the soul, but too much freedom dissolves it. Aquarius, with one foot in Saturn and the other in Uranus, embodies this balance. It carries the vision of revolution, but it demands discipline to make the vision real. Without Saturn, Uranus would scatter its sparks without fire. Without Uranus, Saturn would harden into lifeless stone. The Uranian spark gives Aquarius its reputation for eccentricity and genius. Visionaries who disrupt the norm, scientists like Nikola Tesla, reformers like Thomas Paine, revolutionaries like Rosa Parks, embody this archetype. Each carried the Saturnian burden of responsibility, yet their spark of Uranus broke systems open, lighting the way forward. Aquarius is therefore not merely rebellion or structure. It is both. It is the lightning bound to the tower, the architect who sketches the future, the water-bearer who pours not only wisdom but shock into the collective stream. The Uranian spark ensures that Aquarius is never safe, never static. It disrupts to awaken, yet Saturn remains to shape the awakening into something lasting. This is why Aquarius is always paradox. It carries both the burden of time and the rebellion that seeks to break it. The Zodiac does not create oppositions by chance. Each axis mirrors two signs, revealing not only their strengths but their shadows. Leo and Aquarius stand directly across from each other, fixed fire and fixed air. At first glance, they seem utterly opposed. The lion radiant with pride, the water-bearer detached in vision. Yet when we look closer, their shadows dance together. Pride and coldness are not separate flaws, but reflections of one another, distortions of the same archetypal truth. Leo's shadow is pride that hardens into arrogance. The sun at the center can forget that it shines for all, imagining instead that the cosmos revolves around its glory alone. In history, This shadow appears in rulers who mistake sovereignty for ownership, in leaders who equate their ego with the destiny of nations. Pride blinds, convincing the individual that their radiance is absolute, that the circle exists only to orbit the center. Aquarius's shadow is detachment that hardens into coldness. The water-bearer, pouring for the collective, can forget the individual. Vision, so broad and impersonal, risks dissolving humanity into abstraction. Ideologies birthed from Aquarian brilliance have sometimes reduced people to numbers, statistics, or faceless parts of a grand design. The coldness arises when the collective dream eclipses compassion for the living heart. These shadows mirror one another because they are distortions of the same tension: self versus society, heart versus mind. Leo overemphasizes the self. Aquarius overemphasizes the collective. Both lose balance. The tyrant who shines too brightly scorches the world. The visionary who detaches too far chills it. Both shadows isolate. Pride isolates Leo in its self-importance. Coldness isolates Aquarius in his abstraction. In the end, both archetypes risk cutting themselves off from the very connections they are meant to nurture. Astrology teaches that oppositions are invitations to integration. The shadow dance of Leo and Aquarius is a reminder that each must learn from the other. Leo's pride needs Aquarius's detachment, a reminder that the self is part of a greater whole. Aquarius's coldness needs Leo's warmth, a reminder that the collective is made of living, breathing hearts. Without this exchange, both signs fall into distortion. With it, they balance into wisdom. Psychology echoes this truth. Carl Jung wrote that the shadow is not to be destroyed but integrated. For Leo, integration means turning pride into dignity, ego into service. For Aquarius, integration means turning detachment into clarity, vision into compassion. The shadow dance is not a curse but an opportunity, a way for each archetype to see itself reflected in the other's excess. History shows us the cost of failing this balance. Revolutions that begin in Aquarian vision collapse into tyranny when leaders forget Leo's warmth. Monarchies that exalt Leo's radiance collapse into chaos when they ignore Aquarian reform. Again and again, pride and coldness feed one another, each shadow calling the other forth. But when Leo and Aquarius see each other clearly, the dance changes. Pride softens into noble courage. Coldness warms into visionary compassion. The lion roars not for domination, but for protection. The water-bearer pours not abstract ideology, but living waters of renewal. In their balance, the shadows dissolve, and the dance becomes harmony. The zodiac is not simply a circle of 12 signs. It is a web of relationships, each sign connected to others by aspects of harmony or tension. Among the most powerful of these configurations is the fixed cross, the axis formed by Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, and Scorpio. Each of these signs is fixed in nature, representing endurance, determination, and stability. Yet when they interact, the stability becomes tension. Each clings to its domain, unwilling to yield, and together they form a cosmic crucible of transformation. Leo, the fixed fire sign, radiates from the center with sovereignty and pride. It is the ruler, the lion, the flame of individuality. Across from Leo stands Aquarius, fixed air, detached and visionary, pouring wisdom for the collective. Their opposition is the eternal question: self or society, radiance or vision. This axis defines the battle between ego and awakening, but the fixed cross cannot be understood without the other 2 points: Taurus and Scorpio. Taurus, fixed earth, is the builder and preserver, the embodiment of material security and stability. It roots itself in the physical world, embodying comfort, abundance, and sensuality. Its shadow is stubbornness, the refusal to change. Scorpio, fixed water, is its opposite, the destroyer and transformer, demanding death, rebirth, and the unveiling of what is hidden. Where Taurus clings to life's comforts, Scorpio pulls toward the underworld, toward secrets, toward power that lies beyond the surface. Together, these four form a cross in the sky. And when planets align along this axis, in squares or oppositions, astrologers note immense tension, often marked by upheaval in both personal and collective life. The fixed cross is immovable. Each sign digs in, unwilling to yield. Yet it is this very immovability that forces transformation. As Liz Green observed, the fixed signs represent power locked in form. And when the cross is activated, the form must either evolve or shatter. History echoes this tension. Many revolutions and cultural shifts occur during times when the fixed cross is activated by outer planets. The clash between stability and transformation, sovereignty and rebellion, preservation and destruction, plays out not only in charts, but in the collective stage. Taurus defends the material world, Scorpio seeks to transform it, Leo insists on personal sovereignty, and Aquarius envisions the future. Together, they create a fourfold struggle, each archetype necessary, each unwilling to vanish. On a personal level, those with strong placements in the fixed cross often feel pulled in multiple directions, torn between the desire to preserve, the urge to transform, the need to shine, and the call to serve humanity. The tension can feel unbearable, but it is also the furnace of greatness. From such pressure comes resilience, depth, and vision. The cross of fixed signs is therefore not simply conflict, it is cosmic architecture. Each sign holds a corner of existence, the body, Taurus, the soul's depths, Scorpio, the self, Leo, and the collective, Aquarius. Together, they reveal the challenge of being human, to hold individuality, community, matter, and spirit all at once. The cross may strain, but in its tension lies the possibility of integration, of wholeness born from struggle. Revolutions are not random sparks. They are written into the fabric of the cosmos, carried by the archetypal battle between Leo and Aquarius, between rulers who shine at the center and visionaries who demand freedom for the collective. The French Revolution is perhaps the clearest expression of this axis in human history. In the late 18th century, Uranus, newly discovered, was shaking the astrological imagination. Saturn still ruled Aquarius, but Uranus's sudden presence aligned perfectly with the eruption of rebellion in France and America. The cry for liberty, equality, and fraternity was pure Aquarian spirit, a rejection of Leo's solar throne in favor of a collective vision. The French monarchy had embodied Leo's fire for centuries, most flamboyantly in Louis XIV, the Sun King. He built Versailles as a radiant palace of light, placing himself at the center of a cosmic order. But pride becomes shadow when it forgets the people. By the time of Louis XVI, the radiance had collapsed into isolation. The collective no longer recognized the throne as life-giving, but as parasitic. And so, the water-bearer rose. The guillotine fell. The lion's roar was silenced. But Aquarius's shadow also revealed itself. The revolution, born of vision, descended into the terror. Ideals became ideology. The collective turned cold, sacrificing individuals in the name of purity. The archetypal dance was clear. Leo's pride collapsed under its own weight, and Aquarius's vision, unbalanced by heart, spiraled into chaos. history repeated the lesson that both are needed. Ego must be humbled, vision must be tempered, or the cycle becomes destruction rather than renewal. This same pattern appeared again in the American Revolution. Visionaries like Thomas Paine and Jefferson carried the Aquarian dream of liberty. Yet George Washington, with his regal bearing and solar dignity, embodied Leo's sovereignty in service of that vision. America's birth carried the tension of both archetypes. The lion's leadership and the water-bearer's rebellion united in fragile balance. Today, we are living through another revolutionary age, the shift into the age of Aquarius. Astrologers from C.G. Jung to contemporary writers have speculated about this transition, noting that the Aquarian age is marked by technology, collective awakening, and global networks. Uranus, Aquarius's modern ruler, has given us electricity, digital revolutions, and now artificial intelligence. The collective is more connected than ever, yet also more fragmented. The same tension remains. Will Aquarius's vision serve humanity or dissolve it into abstraction? Will Leo's heart re-emerge to remind us of dignity, or will pride resist the shift until it collapses? Revolutionary ages are thresholds. They strip away what no longer serves and demand a rebalancing of the Leo-Aquarius axis. The French Revolution warned us of pride's fall and vision's coldness. Our present moment offers the same choice. Do we allow vision to serve compassion, or do we let rebellion become chaos? Do we allow leaders to shine with dignity, or do we let ego consume the center? The revolutionary ages do not end. They return again and again until the lesson is finally learned. The journey of Leo is not about destroying the ego, but about transforming it. In the language of depth psychology, the ego is the center of consciousness, the part of us that says, I am. Without it, there is no individuality, no identity, no voice. But in spiritual traditions across the world, the ego is never meant to be master. It is meant to be servant. The sun, Leo's ruler, does not shine for itself. It shines to sustain life. In the same way, Leo's fire is meant to radiate outward, uplifting others, inspiring the world, serving the greater soul. At its lower expression, Leo clings to pride. It seeks applause, attention, the throne. It forgets that sovereignty is a trust, not a possession. This is when Leo becomes tyrant rather than king, celebrity rather than true sovereign. But the spiritual lesson of Leo is humility, to recognize that the ego is not the destination, but the vehicle. The soul is the destination. The ego is the radiant chariot through which the soul travels, expressing its truth in the world. Myth reflects this lesson with clarity. The hero Hercules, often associated with Leo, had to endure 12 labors. His strength alone was not enough. Pride could not carry him through. Only humility, discipline, and service transformed him into a true hero. In Christian tradition, the Lion of Judah refers not to dominance, but to Christ's sacrificial sovereignty, power used in service of love, not control. In Hindu mythology, the Narasimha avatar of Vishnu, half man and half lion, reveals ferocity not as arrogance, but as the protective force of divine justice. Again and again, the lion archetype teaches, the raw must serve the soul, or it consumes itself. Astrology speaks this same truth. In the natal chart, the sun's placement reveals the path of self-expression. But it is not self-expression for vanity's sake. It is the call of destiny, how the soul seeks to shine in this life. Dane Rudhyar called the sun the symbol of creative purpose. When the ego aligns with this purpose, the individual becomes radiant in service, an instrument of something greater than themselves. When it resists, clinging only to pride, it becomes lost in shadow. In esoteric traditions, the heart, ruled by Leo, is considered the seat of the higher self. The Upanishads call it the cave of the heart, where the spark of Brahman, the universal soul, resides within each being. Mystics across traditions describe awakening as the moment when the small self bows to the greater self, when the ego finally serves the soul. This is Leo's spiritual work, to take its fiery identity and surrender it to the flame that never dies. The spiritual lesson of Leo is therefore not to extinguish pride, but to refine it, to recognize that sovereignty is sacred because it reflects the soul's radiance, not the ego's hunger. When the lion bows to the soul, its roar becomes a hymn. When the sun serves the greater whole, its fire becomes eternal light. In this surrender, Leo finds its truest power, the dignity of ego transformed into the radiance of the soul. Aquarius carries the gift of vision. It sees beyond the present, beyond the boundaries of culture, beyond the narrow limits of the self. Its mind stretches into the future, imagining possibilities that others cannot yet perceive. This is why prophets, rebels, and reformers so often embody the Aquarian spirit. But vision alone is not enough. When vision forgets compassion, it becomes ideology. When the water-bearer pours without love, the water turns cold. The true spiritual lesson of Aquarius is to unite vision with compassion, to remember that every collective is made of living, breathing hearts. At its lower expression, Aquarius drifts into detachment. Fixed air is steady, but it can also become rigid. The Aquarian mind, absorbed in systems and ideals, may see people as abstractions, as parts of a design rather than individuals. History shows how revolutions born of Aquarian brilliance, from the French to the Russian, risked becoming cruel when the human heart was forgotten. Equality on paper meant little when lives were sacrificed to ideology. The water poured without compassion drowned rather than nourished. But when Aquarius fulfills its higher calling, it transforms. Its vision becomes not an escape from humanity, but a service to it. This is why modern astrology associates Aquarius not only with Saturn, the builder, but also with Uranus, the liberator. Vision must be grounded in responsibility, but also infused with the spark of love. The water-bearer is not meant to pour endlessly from a cold vessel. He pours living water, carried with care, poured with the intention to heal. Spiritual traditions echo this truth. In Buddhism, the Bodhisattva archetype mirrors Aquarius at its highest. The Bodhisattva attains vision and awakening, but refuses to leave the world, choosing instead to serve all beings. Their insight is vast, but it is fueled by compassion. In Christianity, Christ's image as the one who offers living water reflects the same current. The gift is not knowledge for its own sake, but wisdom infused with love, poured into the world to awaken and to heal. Astrology reminds us that oppositions exist to teach balance. Aquarius is balanced by Leo, the sign of the heart. The water-bearer's mind must learn from the lion's warmth. Without Leo, Aquarius risks becoming cold, abstract, detached. With Leo, it remembers that vision must serve the living. Carl Jung described individuation as the union of opposites within the psyche. For Aquarius, individuation means bringing its far-seeing intellect into harmony with the heart's compassion. Only then does vision become wisdom. In the modern world, this lesson is urgent. Technology, a domain of Aquarius, has connected humanity in ways once unimaginable. Yet it has also isolated, fragmented, and at times dehumanized. The internet, artificial intelligence, global networks, these are Aquarian waters. But whether they heal or harm depends on whether compassion guides their use. Without heart, they divide. With heart, they liberate. The spiritual lesson of Aquarius is clear. Vision must not escape into detachment. It must bend toward compassion. The water-bearer's task is not simply to pour, but to pour with love. Only then does the vessel fulfill its purpose, carrying the living waters that quench not only the mind's thirst, but the soul's. Fire and air have always been bound together. One cannot live without the other. Fire needs air to breathe, to expand, to become visible. Air, invisible and intangible, finds expression only when it ignites flame. This is the alchemy of Leo and Aquarius. Fixed fire and fixed air. Two signs in tension, yet also two forces that can create together what neither could accomplish alone. Leo's fire burns as ego, as heart, as personal radiance. It is the spark of individuality, the courage to stand at the center and say, I am here. Without fire, the world would have no warmth, no light, no passion to drive creation. But fire alone, isolated, quickly consumes itself. It flares, then dies, leaving only ash. Aquarius, by contrast, is the steady current of air, the vast mind, the vision that sees beyond one life into the collective stream. Air sustains, circulates, connects. Yet air without fire is unseen, elusive, easy to forget. It moves, but it does not inspire. Together, their alchemy is powerful. Fire gives air purpose. Air gives fire endurance. When Leo and Aquarius find balance, ego becomes more than pride, and vision becomes more than abstraction. The lion roars with dignity, not tyranny, because it is tempered by the water-bearer's reminder that all radiance must serve the whole. The water-bearer pours with warmth, not coldness, because it is kindled by the lion's reminder that every collective is built of individual hearts. History offers glimpses of this alchemy. In revolutionary moments, leaders who carried Leo's radiance often partnered with Aquarian visionaries. Martin Luther King Jr. shone with Leo's courage and charisma, yet his dream was Aquarian, a vision of collective justice and equality. Gandhi carried the same combination: personal dignity that drew millions, and vision that transcended his own life. In these examples, fire and air did not cancel each other. They fueled each other, creating transformation that outlasted individuals. Astrology affirms this partnership. Fire and air are traditionally harmonious elements. Their trines and sextiles create ease, movement, and synergy. Yet when fixed signs oppose, as Leo and Aquarius do, the balance is harder to reach. Fixed fire resists letting go of pride. Fixed air resists softening abstraction. The challenge is to break the rigidity without losing the gift. When achieved, the result is enduring creation. Vision given form through passion. Passion given direction through vision. The alchemy of Leo and Aquarius is not about erasing their differences. It is about harnessing them. The sun's radiance is incomplete without Saturn's structure and Uranus's lightning. The water-bearer's vessel is empty without the heart's flame to warm it. Together, they carry the secret of destiny itself, that the individual and the collective, the heart and the mind, the ego and the vision, must work not as enemies but as allies. When fire and air truly unite, the world is transformed. The lion shines not only for itself, but for the future. The water-bearer pours not only for the many, but with love for each. And in that union, humanity finds its path, lit by fire, carried by air, sustained by their eternal dance. The great turning of the ages is one of humanity's oldest mysteries. Every 2,160 years, the vernal equinox shifts into a new zodiac sign, marking what astrologers call a world age. For the last 2 millennia, we have lived under the age of Pisces, symbolized by faith, sacrifice, and devotion. It was the age of religions rising, of messianic figures, of oceans crossed and mysteries veiled. But now, as the equinox drifts into Aquarius, the current begins to shift. The waters of vision, technology, and collective awakening pour into the world. And in this shift, Leo, once radiant in its sovereignty, is asked to yield. Pisces carried the dream of the martyr, the savior who sacrifices self for the many. Its symbol, the fish, swam in opposite directions: faith and doubt, illusion and truth. For 2,000 years, humanity has lived in its waters, building churches, temples, and belief systems. The Christ figure himself, appearing as the fisher of men, marked the Piscean archetype. But like every age, Pisces could not last forever. The current of the equinox now moves toward Aquarius, where the archetype of the water bearer rises to prominence. The Aquarian age is about vision, rebellion, and collective transformation. It is the age of networks, technology, and liberation from old structures. Uranus, the planet of shocks and awakenings, governs this era alongside Saturn, demanding both revolution and responsibility. The internet, artificial intelligence, global consciousness movements, all are expressions of this shift. Humanity is being called to awaken together, not through dogma, but through direct experience, not through hierarchy, but through shared vision. Yet in this transition, Leo is never absent. Across from Aquarius, Leo remains the counterweight, the reminder of heart in the midst of abstraction. But its role changes. In the Age of Kings, Leo sat enthroned, sovereign, and unchallenged. In the Piscean Age, it still flared in monarchs, popes, and cults of personality. But now, in Aquarius, the lion is asked to soften, to yield its throne. Ego must bow to vision. Sovereignty must serve the collective. The fire of Leo must illuminate, not dominate. Astrologers like Dane Rudhyar and Carl Jung saw this transition as a crisis of consciousness. Humanity must learn to balance the Leo-Aquarius axis on a collective scale. If Leo refuses to yield, we see authoritarian leaders clinging to power, celebrities worshipped as false sons, ego inflating against the tide of awakening. But when Leo's pride bows to Aquarius's vision, the result is radiant leadership. Leaders who shine not for themselves, but for the collective. This is the great shift, from the age of sacrifice to the age of awakening, from the lion's throne to the water-bearer's vessel. Leo must yield, but not disappear. It must surrender pride to serve vision, ego to serve destiny. Only then can the Aquarian waters truly nourish humanity, carrying us into a future where individuality shines within the whole, and the whole honors the light of each soul. Every age is marked by tension between opposites, and in the dawning Aquarian age, the role of Leo takes on a new meaning. No longer can the lion sit enthroned in solitary splendor, ruling through pride or radiant dominance. The time of sovereign egos towering above the masses has reached its limit. But this does not mean Leo vanishes. Instead, Leo's archetype evolves. The age we are entering is not only Aquarian in its collective vision, it is also an age that demands sovereignty, but sovereignty of a higher order. An age where the heart of Leo empowers the collective of Aquarius, rather than opposing it. At its core, Leo represents the individual flame, the heart that beats uniquely, the ego that declares I am. Aquarius represents the collective, the shared destiny of humanity, the waters that flow for all. When the two stand in opposition, tension arises. Ego resists dissolution into the collective, and the collective resists being dominated by one ego. Yet their integration holds the key to humanity's future. The task of this age is to discover a sovereignty that does not isolate, but inspires. A radiance that empowers not only the self, but the many. The lesson is visible in history. Figures who carried Leo's solar fire, yet placed it in service of the collective, became catalysts for transformation. Nelson Mandela, radiating dignity after decades of imprisonment, did not shine for himself alone. His heart empowered a nation. Martin Luther King Jr., with Leo's courage and charisma, spoke words that ignited millions. His sovereignty was not pride, but service. Even in ancient times, kings were remembered not for their crowns, but for how they served their people. This is Leo at its highest. Sovereignty as stewardship, radiance as empowerment. The danger of the Aquarian age is that it can dissolve the individual into the mass. Technology connects us, but it can also erase us, reducing people to data points in an endless stream. Ideologies promise liberation, but they risk flattening individuality into faceless collectives. This is where Leo is needed. The heart of Leo reminds us that the collective is only alive when each flame within it is honored. Aquarius pours the waters of vision, but Leo ensures that those waters nourish souls, not drown them. Astrologically, this integration is reflected in the axis itself. Oppositions are not enemies, but mirrors. Aquarius without Leo becomes cold, mechanical, and inhuman. Leo without Aquarius becomes prideful, tyrannical, and self-absorbed. But together, they create balance. The individual heart shining within a shared destiny. The collective vision honoring the light of each person. This is the alchemy of the Aquarian age. The age of sovereignty, then, is not about kings on thrones. It is about the sovereignty of the heart, each individual recognizing their flame, not to dominate, but to inspire the whole. In this way, Leo empowers Aquarius, ensuring that the collective does not lose sight of the sacred spark within each being. In the practice of astrology, the axis of Leo and Aquarius is one of the most revealing. When planets align along this line, they illuminate the eternal dialogue between ego and vision, between the heart that shines and the mind that serves the collective. Natal charts that emphasize this opposition often belong to individuals who embody both the brilliance of personal sovereignty and the weight of responsibility to humanity. The Leo-Aquarius axis shows us how the archetypal battle between ego and vision plays out not only in the skies, but in the lives of human beings. Leo placements in a chart, particularly the sun, moon, or ascendant, often highlight the individual's need for expression, creativity, and recognition. These people are called to shine, to live visibly, to embody courage. But if Aquarius is also emphasized through planets, angles, or oppositions, the call shifts. The individual must learn not only to shine for themselves, but to shine in a way that serves the larger whole. Their destiny is tied to finding balance between personal radiance and collective responsibility. Famous charts show this tension clearly. Take Martin Luther King Jr., whose Leo North Node symbolized his path of stepping into visibility and sovereignty, yet whose Aquarian themes are unmistakable in his role as visionary for collective justice. Or Franklin D. Roosevelt, born with the sun in Aquarius, yet carrying the warmth and radiance of Leo in his leadership style. His New Deal reforms reflected Aquarian restructuring, while his ability to inspire through speeches reflected Leo's fire. These lives reveal how the axis does not cancel itself out, but integrates, producing leaders and visionaries who embody both archetypes. Astrologers also note the role of transits across this axis. When outer planets, especially Saturn, Uranus, or Pluto, activate Leo and Aquarius, collective upheaval often follows. The Saturn-Uranus square of 2021, falling across Aquarius and Taurus, but echoing Leo's tension, revealed conflicts between freedom and control, vision and stability. Similarly, eclipses across the Leo-Aquarius axis often mark times when questions of individuality and collective vision rise to the surface in both personal and societal life. These cycles remind us that the archetypal dialogue is ongoing, written into the very rhythms of the cosmos. Psychologically, charts with strong Leo-Aquarius dynamics demand integration. The Leo side calls for the development of a healthy ego, the courage to embody the self fully, to become a radiant presence in the world. The Aquarius side demands that this presence not become isolated pride, but a vessel for vision that benefits the many. Carl Jung described individuation as the process of uniting opposites within the psyche. In this sense, the Leo-Aquarius axis is individuation itself, the uniting of heart and mind, sovereignty and service. Natal charts that reveal this axis remind us of the universal truth. Every ego must one day bow to vision, and every vision must one day ignite a heart. When balanced, the individual shines brightly, while also serving humanity's evolution. This is the astrology of ego and vision, not enemies, but mirrors, guiding us toward wholeness written in the stars. Every soul carries the entire zodiac within it. Even if your sun, moon, or ascendant is not in Leo or Aquarius, their archetypes live somewhere in your chart. They might appear through planets placed in those signs, through angles that align with them, or through houses that carry their flavor. And even when they are not directly emphasized, the Leo-Aquarius axis still whispers in the background, for the wheel of 12 cannot be divided. Each archetype is part of the whole, and each of us must live their tension in some way. Leo is the flame of ego, the heart that insists on individuality, on sovereignty, on the courage to shine. Aquarius is the stream of vision, the collective mind that looks beyond the self toward the future. To be human is to carry both. The ego is necessary. Without it, there is no identity, no sense of I am here. But the collective is equally necessary. Without it, the individual drowns in isolation, cut off from the shared destiny of humanity. The battle within every soul is how to balance these poles, how to honor the individual flame without letting it consume, and how to serve the collective without losing the self. Astrology reveals this dynamic through natal placements. When planets fall along the Leo-Aquarius axis, the tension is heightened. An opposition between the Sun in Leo and Saturn in Aquarius, for example, often creates a life where pride is tested by responsibility, where sovereignty is humbled by vision. A moon in Aquarius opposite Mars in Leo may reveal the inner struggle between collective duty and personal desire, between detachment and passion. Even without exact oppositions, the houses governed by Leo and Aquarius in a chart show where the soul must navigate the dance of ego and vision. Psychology echoes this astrological truth. Carl Jung described individuation as the process of balancing opposites within the psyche. Leo's archetype represents the conscious ego, the radiant self that seeks to live fully. Aquarius represents the transpersonal, the archetype of the collective unconscious, the truth that each soul is part of something greater. Individuation demands that we honor both, to shine brightly, but not selfishly, to serve humanity, but not lose ourselves in the faceless mass. The battle within is not meant to be won by one side. Ego is not the enemy of vision, and vision is not the destroyer of ego. They are mirrors, each exposing the other's shadow. Pride warns us not to dissolve. Vision warns us not to dominate. When they are integrated, the result is wholeness. The heart shining with purpose, the mind dreaming with compassion. Every soul carries both Leo and Aquarius because every soul is both self and part of the whole. The task of life is to bring these opposites into dialogue, to let the lion and the water bearer meet within, and to discover that destiny is not ego alone, nor vision alone, but the alchemy of both. Humanity stands now at a threshold where archetypes once confined to myth and astrology press directly into collective life. The opposition of Leo and Aquarius is no longer just a story in the stars. It is alive in politics, in technology, in culture, in the very fabric of our shared future. Leo insists on the sovereignty of the individual, the shining of the personal flame. Aquarius insists on the vision of the collective, the restructuring of society for all. Their eternal opposition means that our present moment is shaped by a tension between pride and vision, ego and awakening, sovereignty and solidarity. The Leo side of this opposition is visible in the cult of personality that defines much of modern culture. Celebrities, influencers, and political leaders often embody the solar archetype, radiant, magnetic, commanding attention. In them we see the enduring hunger for a center, for a sun around which to orbit. Yet the shadow is clear. Ego inflated into spectacle, power claimed without humility, radiance twisted into domination. The lion roars loudly in the 21st century, but not always with dignity. The Aquarian side emerges in the rise of collective movements and technological revolutions. The internet itself is an Aquarian phenomenon, a vast network dissolving borders, connecting humanity into one stream of information and consciousness. Social movements, from climate justice to civil rights to global solidarity, echo the water bearer's gift, the pouring of vision into the collective. Yet here, too, lies shadow. The coldness of algorithms, the abstraction of individuals into data, the risk of ideology without compassion. The waters can nourish, but they can also overwhelm. Astrologers have long spoken of the shift into the age of Aquarius. Carl Jung himself noted that humanity's collective psyche was moving into new territory, where individuality would be tested against the demands of the whole. In this age, the Leo-Aquarius opposition becomes a defining challenge. Can the individual shine without consuming? Can the collective awaken without erasing? Can ego and vision be brought into harmony? Or will they continue to clash, tearing societies between authoritarian pride and revolutionary chaos? This battle is not abstract. It plays out in our daily choices. Do we live only for self, or do we live in service of something greater? Do we chase recognition, or do we cultivate wisdom? Do we allow technology to dehumanize, or do we insist on guiding it with compassion? Every soul carries both Leo and Aquarius. Every society does too. The question is not whether the opposition exists, it is whether we integrate it. The collective awakening of our time depends on this integration. The lion must learn humility. The water bearer must learn warmth. Ego must become servant of soul, and vision must be infused with love. Only then will humanity step fully into the Aquarian age without losing the radiance of the heart. For in the union of Leo's fire and Aquarius's air, we find the alchemy of a future that is both luminous and humane. The great tension between Leo and Aquarius has always carried the risk of fracture. One insists on sovereignty, the other on vision. One burns with the fire of individuality, the other pours the waters of collective awakening. History is full of moments when these archetypes clashed. Kings crushed by revolution, visionaries exiled by rulers, movements torn apart by the pull between pride and detachment. Yet beneath the conflict lies the deeper truth. They were never meant to destroy one another. The purpose of their opposition is reconciliation. The final reconciliation comes when ego and vision stop dividing and begin to unite. Ego, in its healthy form, is the vessel of the soul. It gives shape to individuality, allowing the spark of the divine to manifest in the world. Vision, in its true form, is the vessel of the collective soul. It connects the sparks, weaving individuals into the larger tapestry of humanity. The two are not enemies, but mirrors. Ego without vision becomes tyranny. Vision without ego becomes chaos. But together, they create balance. A humanity that honors both the sacredness of the self and the destiny of the whole. Psychology affirms this union. Carl Jung spoke of individuation as the integration of opposites, the reconciliation of conscious and unconscious, personal and collective. In this sense, Leo and Aquarius embody the same process. Leo is the conscious ego, radiant and central. Aquarius is the collective unconscious, vast and visionary. Individuation demands that the two meet, not in opposition, but in dialogue, creating a self that is both unique and connected. Astrology teaches that oppositions, when integrated, become the strongest aspects in a chart. Rather than pulling apart, they create a line of energy that sustains balance. A person with strong Leo-Aquarius placements is called not to choose one side, but to live both. Their destiny is to shine as individuals while carrying a vision for the collective. The same principle applies to humanity itself. In the Aquarian age, the lion and the water bearer must learn to serve one another. The heart must guide the mind. The mind must honor the heart. We see glimpses of this reconciliation already. Leaders who radiate Leo's courage, yet dedicate themselves to Aquarian service. Communities that honor individuality while building collective vision. Technologies infused not only with innovation, but with compassion. These are signs that ego and vision need not divide. They can create together. The flame of Leo warms the waters of Aquarius, and the waters of Aquarius protect the flame from consuming itself. The final reconciliation is not a utopia waiting in some distant age. It is a choice, offered in every moment, when we let our pride serve our purpose, when we let our vision serve our compassion, when we recognize that every heart carries its own radiance, and every radiance belongs to the whole. Ego and vision are not enemies. They are partners in the great work of awakening. The story of Leo and Aquarius has never truly been about one triumphing over the other. It has always been about balance. Fire and air are not enemies. They are partners, bound together in an eternal dance. Fire gives air visible form, transforming the unseen into warmth and light. Air gives fire breath, sustaining it, keeping it alive. Without air, fire dies. Without fire, air remains invisible, intangible, unexpressed. This is why Leo and Aquarius face each other across the zodiac wheel. Their opposition is not a curse, but a mirror. A reminder that sovereignty and vision, ego and collective, must forever weave together. Leo stands for the radiant self, the courage to be visible, the heart that insists on uniqueness. Aquarius stands for the collective mind, the responsibility to humanity, the vision of what lies beyond the self. Their tension is the human condition itself. We are each individuals, yet we are also members of a whole. We are flames, but we are also currents of air. To lean too far into Leo is to burn with pride until the flame consumes. To lean too far into Aquarius is to dissolve into abstraction, forgetting the heart that beats within the collective. Balance is the path. Balance is the lesson. History shows what happens when the dance is forgotten. Monarchs who clung too tightly to their solar thrones collapsed under the weight of rebellion. Visionaries who poured waters without warmth saw their movement spiral into cold ideology. Again and again, when balance was lost, the world trembled. But history also shows the beauty of balance when it is found. Leaders who carried Leo's radiance but dedicated it to service. Reformers who carried Aquarius's vision but tempered it with compassion. These figures did not destroy one archetype in favor of the other. They allowed both to speak, both to shape, both to serve. Astrology teaches that oppositions are not fractures, but bridges. The Leo-Aquarius axis is not meant to be resolved by choosing sides, but by holding both. A person whose chart is marked by this axis must learn to embody individuality while contributing to the collective. A society marked by this axis must honor its leaders without idolizing them, must honor its collective without dehumanizing the individual. This balance is fragile, but it is also eternal. The dance will never end because humanity will never stop needing both. The eternal dance of Leo and Aquarius is the rhythm of destiny itself. It is the interplay of heart and mind, flame and breath, ego and vision. Their battle is not meant to produce victory. It is meant to sustain balance, to ensure that neither side consumes the world. For when the lion roars with dignity and the water-bearer pours with compassion, humanity stands at its strongest. This is not the end of their story. It is the beginning of ours. The dance continues forever, written in the stars, reflected in our lives, calling us always to the balance that makes us whole. When the lion and the water-bearer finish their dance, their story does not end. It becomes our story. And now, beloved traveler, the question is no longer about the stars above, but about the flame and the vision within you. Will you let pride consume, or will you let your radiance inspire? Will you let detachment chill, or will you let vision awaken? If this journey has stirred something inside you, then don't let it fade into silence. Let it become a spark that continues to grow. Watch more of our videos and step deeper into the mysteries they guard. Every story here is a key, unlocking what was hidden, restoring what was forgotten, guiding you closer to the truth you already carry. Take a breath, and now, if you felt the call, subscribe to this channel. It is not just a button. It is a vow to walk further on this hidden voyage with us. Comment with what resonates. Your reflections are part of the great dialogue between ego and vision. Share this with those you know are ready to awaken, for each soul touched expands the collective flame. And yes, like this video, for in such a simple act, you help the message reach beyond these walls and into the lives that wait in silence. This is how we keep the balance alive. This is how the eternal dance of Leo and Aquarius continues, not only in the heavens, but here, in our community, in this circle of light and vision. So, let your heart burn bright, let your vision flow free, and remember, you are not watching from the outside. You are part of this voyage, always. Welcome to the hidden voyage. Welcome home. Soul Whisper and Soul Creator, the hidden voyage